The more I sit at this table with you, I realize that you really have considered this quite a bit.
Oh my God. Not at all, dude. Not at all. I would never eat a human being.
And don't ever eat a human being, folks.
Don't do it. Unless it's your own meat that you grew.
Stay away from ménage à trois and eating other people. That's just standard.
They're both a delicate balance.
It is delicate.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna like eat one of the ménage à trois, maybe that's a different dynamic. I don't know.
There are stories for that one.
I'm sure
Real
there
life
might be.
stories, yeah. So
Get into a little S&M before to tenderize the
you use salt in S&M.
No, you tenderize.
You use a little salt.
Salt's not the only thing you can. Oh man, that would be a horrible way to go though. Wouldn't it? I thought about that.
What do you mean?
That's like in the top 10 ways to go. That would be horrible to me. To being skinned alive and then having salted, like just oh god, that would be so painful. Think of what 1 grain of salt could do.
I feel
and the
like
pain scale of that.
I feel like at a certain point you just don't feel it and you just pass out.
Maybe.
I guarantee you. That's
unfathomable.
Unfathomable.
No, fathomable.
Fathom.
This is when we need Don Hewley.
Anyway, so we have to move from this venue to another venue in order to. We got to have this interview.
Talk to the guy who eats people
remotely.
Yeah.
Right, and this place is not capable of that setup. So we're gonna have to move. We'll see you again in a little bit of a dungeon-looking room.
So we're gonna talk to the cannibal, and please like and subscribe us if you want. We would like to hear.
Nico.
Nico.
We're gonna talk to Nico. We're gonna try to treat him like a human being. He has served his time for one of the crimes. So
I'm Nico. I wrote several books on the subject of cannibalism. Among other things, I also paint. I'm a painter. And about 25 years ago, I was in prison for several things, and ever since then I am considered as an expert on the subject, let's say.
Okay, so in your books that you have written about your experiences as being a cannibal, what would you say? What would you say is the how do I say this? So your inspiration for wanting to write a book about cannibalism? Why would you write that?
It's actually other people who asked me who told me that I should write a book about these kind of things, and the first book was the Cannibal Cookbook that I wrote in 2007, and it's been translated in 5 different languages now: Japanese, German, Italian, French, English. So that was my very first book on the subject, and then I wrote other books on the subject. I've corresponded with many cannibals and serial killers in the early 2000s and the 90s. A couple of them gave me recipes that I use for the book, and that's about it. I did a lot of research and I had a little experience in the matter. So
what is your experience? What is your experience?
I used to work in a morgue. Well, when I was 21, 22, I worked in a morgue for a year. And when I was working in a morgue, I started to bring stuff home, let's say, and cook it.
Oh, you would bring stuff. You would actually bring stuff home.
Yeah, but here's the thing:
Yeah.
is that why did you bring them home? Did you see the cut and you saw the cut and you were like, that looks tasty, right? Like I mean, like you're making
it's
cuts,
way more complex than that, I would say.
So how does that conversation start for you? How does that conversation start?
Let me finish that question first. It's more complex.
Ever since I was a kid, I was into the macabre and into the dark stuff a little bit more than the others, let's say. It was more like an obsession with physical death and what happens after death. So I had a family that died. I saw the wakes. So I developed an interest and a fascination with dead bodies and how they look and what they become after death. And when I was at an age where I started to work, I decided to work in a morgue. So I worked in a couple of different morgues in Paris, in France. And Paris, exactly. And first I learned the job. They showed me how to do the basics of the job when you're a morgue attendant. And after a while, I was doing the restoration work, they call it, when you actually take care of the autopsied bodies and you have to stitch them up.
Oh, like the cosmetic stuff, getting prepared for burial?
Cosmetics, preparing them.
And the washing.
And also you have to wash all the blood from the autopsy.
Did you have a connection with the washing part of the body?
Yeah. Everything. You have to understand that during an autopsy, the coroner or the person who actually performs the autopsy only does the basic cuts, and he takes the organs out, and then he leaves you the autopsy technician to actually stitch the body up. So
okay.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, which is pretty parallel with the way that you would prepare like your hunted prey. Like say you hunted a deer, you would take the guts out of the body, right? And you would leave that shell with that's the muscular shell, right? And it's the same way that you would do that, right? And so it's the same way that we treat our prey.
I'm not a hunter, so I can't tell you how to prepare a deer or a hog or whatever they do in the forest. But what I know is how to prepare a dead body, and there's the abdominal cavity. You have to stitch it up. There's a certain way to do it, and there's tissue when you stitch people up. There's tissue that goes to the waste bin, muscular tissue that comes from the ribs, and this is what I would bring home and cook eventually.
Oh, okay.
And I did this,
So that's where the fascination started for you, where you felt like you could take that with you because it was being discarded?
The fascination started way before that. This was the final,
So how did that fascination start for you then? If it didn't start there, honestly, where does that conversation start in your head, where you start rationalizing
from the experience of your world to hand to mouth? Like where do those changes happen, right?
When I was a teenager, I started to drink my own blood, then the blood of my partners. So first it was about blood, and I always had this.
What was the fascination with blood?
The texture, the taste, and
nothing about like
the
vessel that like holds life kind of thing. Nothing that metaphysical It was just the
No,
physical.
I'm not. I'm not a religious person. I couldn't give two fucks about, you know,
Yeah.
the soul or the future of the soul or those kind of metaphysical thing. I think it's a, it's. I've worked with the dead for so many years, and I don't believe in the afterlife and the. For me, it's the end of the story, and what I was dealing with was empty shells. Basically, there was nothing
There's no
sacred
life in
or
them
nothing.
already.
Yeah, no,
So
there's
it's
nothing
not
spiritual.
about
It's
like
only
in some
flesh.
cultures they might have that thing where they
Yeah,
felt like they in ingesting someone was you would gain their strength or power. You know what I mean? How
yeah,
that is, it
culture,
wasn't
of
like
course.
that. It wasn't like that for you. It was more
No, no,
carnal.
it was more carnal, and so it was a matter of texture and chewing. The
Chewing.
experience
Yeah. No,
itself.
I do
Chewing.
understand what he's saying.
Yeah, like when you're, for example, I prefer my steak raw, or rare. I don't like, yeah, I don't like blue steaks and stuff like that. So it's about texture and chewing and the actual taste of blood in your mouth. Plus the fact that it was human, of course, there was a special thing that worked in my mind as to that. The fact of actually. Being at the time I was a bit unhinged. Maybe I still am, I don't know, but um, it was my way of expressing a form of anger,
Okay.
and doing it that way was my way of, instead of going to, when I was a teenager, I could have gone to my school and start shooting at the other kids. This was my way of, you know, taking my anger out in a way. But not only, it was a mix of different things. And most of all, the most important was this almost, intimate feel of, being close to physical death,
So how did that affect your relationships with living people?
Oh, I saw them as living corpses. Actually, I would take the public transports to go to my work, and I would not see people. I would not see them. I would only see them as potential cattle, in a way.
Is that something you still feel now, or
Yeah, when people piss me off, I see them as cattle.
What
I see the
stops?
veins in them. I see the bone structure. I see I see what the meat would look like. And for me, it's a matter of we all animals.
The
It's
fat
basically
composition.
yeah. I see all that because I have a trained eye. I know more or less what's under the skin. So this doesn't mean that I'm a total sociopath or psychopath. Well, maybe I am. I don't really ask myself those questions. I let other people ask those questions for me, and I don't care.
well, we're not like
We're not going into
yeah,
that.
we're not going to go into that because we're not going to.
Can I ask?
Oh, I just want to preface this. You are welcome at this table. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
This table is welcome. It's a free exchange of ideas. In no shape or form do we want you to feel condemned or and what we're doing. We're just asking for because you're welcome now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
you're absolutely welcome to this table. And I have a fascination, honestly. I have for a very long time with the consumption of human meat. I'm like many fucking American men who fantasize about survival scenarios. Right? We think about how we would react in those situations, and that's I have a fascination with it. If I'm in a scenario where I'm out hiking in the woods in the winter with the people that I care about because we're having a little trip, right? Like this Donner Party, like the fucking Donner Party,
They
right?
were having a little trip.
Yeah.
They were having a little trip, okay? They were having a little trip. When we boil it down to what it is, they were having a little trip, right? And they were fucking hanging out, and then it was like shit, fucking
Shit, there's no more gummy bears.
yeah, you know
no
what I mean?
more-
Like shit, fucking went south, and they couldn't handle it, and then all of a sudden people started dying. And they started eating people
For survival.
out of necessity,
Yeah.
right? Because which is not what you did, obviously, but like they ate people out of necessity. I think about that scenario. In that scenario, the person you're eating is probably somebody that you know, somebody that you care about, somebody that you love, right? One, do you love? Who do you love? And if you were in that survival scenario, would you eat the person that you love? And if you ate that person, how would you eat them? This is a chain of questions.
Chain of questions.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation before with people who shared my life, and as long as they more or less know who I am, there's no problem with that. Now, that doesn't mean that that's an obsession for me of waiting for them to die and until
But
I
is
can
that a
actually
passing
eat them.
thought, though,
But-
when you are...
No, not at all. Not at all.
Let's-
There's other
let's
ways
break that
to bite. When you're having sex, you can bite people. Some girls like that. Some girls like being strangled. So there's this side of me, maybe that my partners like. I don't know, but it's not like I'm totally obsessed with it or on the point of not sleeping at night over it. And I can actually control who I am. And prison, the fact of having been in prison for a few years has taught me more or less how to channel those things into a creative outlet, which is painting and writing. So this is what I do now, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I mean, I've been free for more than 20 years now, and I haven't been in the front news of newspapers. So that might give you an answer as to what's going on or how I can actually manage those things.
Somebody that you very much love, well, how would you consume that person in a way that would be the most respectful way to do it? You know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying.
There's no respectful way when you're dealing with actually
That's a good
butchering
answer.
up
That's a fucking great
and
answer.
preparing meat, or how what's respect in a way. I mean, when you're doing this, there's no real respect, and that's a larger question. There's no romantic side to those kind of things. I can quote you many cases where there was some kind of consensual thing going on. There's this guy in Germany who met a guy on the internet, and they both had these fantasies.
Yes.
Yeah.
One guy wanted to eat the other, or the other guy wanted to be eaten, and at the end of the day, they just the victim just swallowed a lot of drugs, and when he passed out, the other guy slit his throat. And was it really a romantic gesture? I don't know, but
Reminded
there's
me that
no
there was a
nice
song
ways
called-
of.
There's a song called "I'd Rather Eat Randy." I don't know if you ever heard it. It was a YouTuber did this song. It's hilarious. It's kind of like the same thing where they're grooming their friend to be potential meal. Yeah, they're grooming. They're feeding them ice cream. They're like feeding them like big fat sandwiches and keeping them around. But at the same time, they're
So I sympathize with the fact that you just woke up. We're
already tanked here.
we're drinking.
All right, so I have to ask you a
All right.
question, direct question at this time. So, when we've given a little bit of your motivation, maybe I think behind this, and why you were doing this at first. I think a little bit. You've given us a little insight on that. So more in depth inside of you. How again, it's kind of connected to how do you start that conversation with yourself? How did you feel when you like took your victim and then made that decision to eat them. So how did you feel?
Yeah.
Like what was your
What was the inflection point? What was the flip between
for you?
cultivating the things that were put in front of you, the things that were provided to you, right?
To actually make the decision to do that yourself.
In the morgue, and then killing a person in order to cultivate that or harvest that meat.
The murder charge was not connected to actual cannibalism. There was no cannibalism during the murder. There was the intent, but I didn't have time. That's the thing. So the murder victim was not cannibalized. I was not charged on that murder charge of cannibalism. I just shot the person, and there was an intent, but the fact that I did not have physical time to actually do the things that I wanted to do, to leave the scene earlier than I thought. I had to leave the scene earlier, and did not have the time to do the things. But the intent was there. So my intent was to actually dissect several muscle groups and bring them home and cook them too. So there was this intent, but it didn't happen the way I wanted to.
From an outside perspective, from what I'm hearing in that must have been, as far as feeling is concerned, and that's frustrating. That must have been very frustrating.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it was. And there was a period of time after that when I was, trying to find other victims, trying to plan other things before I was actually arrested.
So during that time period, in doing that, that's more like what was the feeling that you got from that? Like can you describe that feeling of that searching for that in mind when you're meeting people?
Oh, it's like being a hunter, I guess, being planning, and the planification itself takes a lot of your time and a lot of your active thoughts, and it becomes obsessive thoughts.
Yeah, obsessive thoughts.
You're basically focused on doing it, and there's nothing that can go in between you and your target. And in my case, it was being arrested that stopped the thing, but otherwise I would have probably continued. Yeah.
Do you still, at this point, wish that you would have an opportunity to consume the person that you hid?
No, because the experience, I had the experience before when I worked in the morgue, so I knew the taste, I knew
But those weren't fresh. Those weren't fresh, right?
It's fresh. It's fresher than the meat you eat at your local supermarket, because it was people who had died the day before.
Dead.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, it was way fresher than. Yeah, it was way fresher. The meat you eat at your local supermarket was slaughtered 1 week before or 5 days before. Me, it was like people who were autopsies 2 days after they passed away. So it was fresher than what you actually eat in your local supermarket.
But I fish, I hunt, and when you take an animal and you immediately stab a knife into the brain of an animal and stop the nervous system, and then shove something up the main blood circulation, and stop that blood circulation, and stop all of that decay that happens in the body, that freshness of that animal is incomparable to what you would buy in a grocery store. So,
actually, the stuff in the grocery store, I think what he was saying would be older than what you were experiencing. It is. It's
It
actually
is,
it's
it is,
older.
yeah,
It's older.
because that's about a week later.
Like you, even like the word
But
USDA choice just means
even
what's
then,
not rotting.
Even then,
What's
even
separating that.
2 days later, which these bodies are not taken care of in a aspect or a mindset of this is meat that's going to be consumed.
No, but it's actually preserved
it's
in a
not
way.
going to be consumed.
I
So
don't think it would be better.
it's not because when I take a fish, if I gut that fish and I brain that fish and I bleed that fish, if I bleed that fish 2 hours, like right when it happens, when I catch that fish, and then if I do it 2 hours later, that fish tastes different. It definitely tastes distinctively different, and that's my morbid curiosity, which is maybe not actually it's not something that you have experienced, right? You haven't taken a life, ended it, stopped blood circulation, and drained the blood out of the body immediately after the end of life, right? You haven't done that.
I think even Jeffrey Dahmer didn't do that. Jeffrey Dahmer would eat the biceps of his victim 2 or 3 days after he actually butchered them. He didn't kill them and eat them right after. You see what I mean? There's always some kind of some amount of time that is spent. So from my personal research on all the cannibals I've studied, or even had any kind of interactions with, I never met a person who actually killed a person and ate them right a few minutes after that.
That's interesting.
So I guess
that's actually
of
interesting
course.
as fuck. Actually,
That is.
So, but is that a psychological
course,
thing? Is that a psychological
I
thing,
don't
or is there
I don't know,
a
it's the
period
actual-
of
first
struggle?
of all, first of all, I guess you have to actually dissect the muscle groups, and that takes
Time.
Which we're going to go
some
into. That is a whole
Yeah.
different section of questioning that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get into that one. But before we get into that one, you wanted to actively kill somebody in order to consume. Like, what was that threshold? What was that breaking point? What was that catalyst? Right?
Oh, just misanthropy. I just didn't like people. I just, I had
Fucking
this
cheers,
profound
brother.
dislike.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I don't like people either.
So it was just
I
disregard.
had the opportunity to do it, and I thought at this time quite naively that I could get away with it. And also, I was not in the most stable state of mind at the time, so my decisions were a bit blurred by the things that were going on through my mind at the time. So yeah,
That makes
there
sense.
was at the
It makes
at the
sense.
core of the thing. Yeah, at the core of the thing, I was a 22 years old angry boy, and
How old are you now?
I just wanted to do it. Yeah.
How old are you now?
Now I'm 52.
Okay.
Oh, we're very close to the same age.
But
Oh,
I definitely
Just turned 54.
I definitely I'm only 40, but only 40. But I'm only 40, but I definitely fucking sympathize with a lot of things that you said. I fucking hate people. People suck in the broad sense of everything. They do, and they kind of put themselves into I don't know,
Nice little box.
of cattle.
yeah.
It's true.
They
So
really do.
that begs a question that I have to ask then. So that question is,
Sure.
so now you're navigating your life. It's been 20 years since all these things, and I
Only
think
20 years?
we're none of us are.
Yeah.
We all
30.
No, 20. You said 20
30.
years. Yeah, 20-ish. So
Yeah, I've been released 20 years ago, but the things we're talking about, they happened 30 years ago.
okay, 30 years ago. So you've had a lot of time to reflect on this. That's a long time. That's a
Yeah.
long time to reflect on your deeds and all these other things. So my question is, you are you're in the convenience store, you're picking up, some beer or whatever it is, and the guy behind the counter is, ripped you off for, that couple cents that he's ripping you off every time you go in there, and you just, is the thought like, do you know I could literally, consume you if I wanted to? Does that thought still come to you?
There's this thought. After I was released, there was a period of my life when I would go out a lot. I would go out to bars, I would go out to concerts, got clubs, because I kind of liked the energy at the time, and I was still in my 30s. I wanted to experience things I was unable to do when I was in prison. So there was this period of time of over 3 years when I was very social, and of course, because of why I was and the reputation I had to deal with a lot of stupid drunk people who were trying to push my boundaries, and try to basically test themselves doing this,
Yeah, I understand that.
prove something to themselves. It's like when you're poking a lion with a stick, and that kind of stupid things. And yeah, it happened a few times.
And I hope this is not one of those venues where you feel that way, because we definitely don't want to be those drunk guys.
No, don't
drunk guys goading him, making him feel like he wants to.
No, we're drunk, but but we.
Yeah, no, I don't get the same kind of vibe from you. But back in those days when I was in those clubs, in those clubs it's all about make believe and pretend you're into dark stuff when you're not, and all those guys, when they're faced with the real deal, they kind of freak out. So I had a few confrontations and things going on, and I was banned from a few clubs before because I more or less showed my fangs at people, and so now I'm living a more reclusive kind of life. I live in the forest. I practically have no social life. I don't want to meet new people. I don't care about this. The only time when I actually meet people, and when I do, it is when I go to conventions or true crime things, and when I do signatures, when I sign stuff, and I meet people. But it's people who actually are respectful 99% of the time.
Respectful or edifying, glorifying, right?
Both, sometimes both, but as long as there is those people, when they start talking me and they see that I'm actually not a complete maniac, they actually ask me the right questions, and we can actually engage in a conversation. So I give you an experience that they will never have otherwise. They will never have the occasion to approach someone like me in any other way. And at the same time, I get feedback on my books, which is always great from those people, and I have actual interactions with them, and it's all very respectful, and it's very productive for me, because I know what they want, what they expect from my books, for what they I actually came to like those kind of interactions, and I prefer to hang out with those kind of people in the true crime community, and those kind of people, than people who actually pretend that they're into evil or brutal stuff, death metal or whatever.
Yeah, I know.
But
that's gotta be sick. That's gotta be in its own way so annoying.
Yeah, it's extremely annoying. It's one of the worst annoying things. back about 20 years ago. I lived in Sweden, the north of Europe, and there's a big black metal community over there. So it's mostly kids who are into satanic worship and singing about Satan and evil and this kind of shit. And
which had nothing to
I
do
just
with what you did, right?
yeah, I couldn't relate to those kids because they don't know what they're talking about, and they all make believe. They all live in this fantasy world, singing about stuff they will never do, and they never, you know. So there's a gap between me and those people. There's definitely they expect an image from me that maybe I don't. I failed to give them. I don't know, but yeah, I prefer the true crime community. At least I get more, more interesting conversations with people who are obsessed with true crime and know their true crime well. Mm.
Yeah. So I see, like I honestly put in the same situation that you were put in. I could see myself being in your shoes right now. Honestly, I could.
Cool.
Like
Thank you.
The fascination with seeing a muscle fiber and that being that might taste good. Seeing that and then wanting to explore that and then being like this isn't going anywhere anyway. You know what I mean? Like I can take a cut off of this. That's not going to be part of the funeral, and then I can cook that up and I can fucking taste that. Like I absolutely 100% see that curiosity, and I 100% see carrying out that curiosity. I do.
Whereas I would feel like at the same time that's not I may joke and boast. Sometimes I once had a shirt that said, "When all the food is gone, I'm eating you first," and I would get all sorts of flack from people like in a survival situation.
Yeah.
There's a difference between arousal from doing something like that and and having a morbid curiosity, and I could see where that would be annoying.
A genuine curiosity.
Fanboys gotta suck for what you're doing because that's not something you really want to have a following
Exactly.
for. Or do you?
I've had so many awkward situations. People who actually were obsessed by the fact that they wanted to be eaten. So they harass me. They send me emails, etc. They want it to happen, and people ask me for advice for doing illegal stuff and stuff like that. I got that all the time. I've been doing this. Been online for more than 20 years with my position, so you can easily imagine how the shit I've been subjected to over the years. Sometimes it's okay, sometimes I develop interesting interactions with people, but sometimes it's it's just annoying. And
I understand. Would you be interested in? Can we invite you to share our physical table sometime, maybe, if at all possible?
Yeah,
where we could actually get together, share some drink. You drink?
Yeah, sure.
Or maybe smoke a little weed or something like that. I don't know if you do that.
I'm not really supposed to talk about it yet, but I might be in the U.S. sometime next year.
So is there a certain kind of music that you like to listen to now if you were considering doing something like this again?
I'm not really a musical person.
Really?
Honestly, no, I don't really listen to music. I respect, musicians and people who are really into music. For me, no, it's not part of my routine. I don't listen to music during the day.
You read? You read? Are you a reader?
I read a lot.
What do you read? Give me 2 book recommendations.
Gerard Schaefer, Killer Fiction.
Oh, that's actually a good one. Holy shit.
Yeah, it's a great book, and one of the books that I published, it's called The Gospel of Blood.
You don't read your own book, though, do you? That's just a shameless promo. I appreciate that, though.
Okay, hold on.
I appreciate that so much, though.
Hold on. Sit straight. Everybody sit straight. Let's reset. No.
That you've seen me in heated discussions, so is that something you really want to have going on there with a cannibal?
I'm carrying that night.
Yeah. What, for me? What do you guys just got to go down?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know who I gotta put down.
Like,
but I guarantee you, if I get it approved legally, I'll do the paperwork. I'm gonna eat your body.
It's all down to mobilization.
I'm gonna eat your body.